Hi everyone.
Hi everyone.
This is another Coffee and Tea Art Talk with Mark Eanes. I'm Maria, his wife, facilitator of these talks. So, following the journey of this painting being currently developed, Mark had an idea about talking about art as an act of discovery.
Right, art as an act of discovery.
Yeah.
And I love that idea. And I got that quote, actually, it's not necessarily an original quote from my head. And so if you don't mind, I want to take a quote from Raymond Carver, who's a wonderful short story writer. And there's this marvelous essay on writing that he has in this little book. And
I love how that book is completely used. And
I know, it's very worn.
Grease and dirt.
It's
and
very worn.
He likes it.
I have a habit of reading to my students and artists that I work with. I just enjoy picking through other sources. So here's Raymond Carver talking about writers and writing. And so I'm just going to take a little quote here. He says that in an essay called Simply Enough Writing Short Stories, Flannery O'Connor, the great Southern writer, talks about writing as an act of discovery. And O'Connor says that she most often did not know where she was going when she sat down to work on a short story. She says she doubts that many writers do know where they're going when they begin something. And she uses this little short story, Good Country People, as an example of how she put together a short story whose ending she could not even guess at until she was nearly there. And then it goes on to explain here how she starts with these characters. She doesn't know exactly who they might be. She introduces another character, and before you know it, they're doing things that just felt
So is that like you're introducing colors and shapes?
Well, that's when I was here working on this piece, and then another piece recently. It is an adventure. It's an adventure, and the whole nature of adventure is not knowing exactly where you're going at all times. So there is that act of discovery, and which is what I love about doing art.
Is that scary?
Well, this is an interesting thing about the scare factor. In an adventure, or I should say in discovery, you have a sense of what you're doing. You have a sense of where you're going. But there's always the unknown. There's the mystery. There's the not knowing. And that not knowing can be a little scary for certain people. It doesn't scare me as much as, let's say, it used to, because now I know that if I make a wrong turn, if I get lost, if I stumble, that as long as I'm patient and I persevere, I'll find my way. And that's also helpful when I get frustrated. I mean, we get frustrated sometimes because things don't always go the way we would like them to. Yeah. And that also is the act of discovery, is being open to letting the piece take you somewhere. I mean, there are times when I have to be in control of what I want to do, but there's other times, let's say, I might just grab a brush with a color and just have at it, just to get unstuck, you see. And then I discover what's working in that bold move and what's not working. And if it doesn't work, I have to scrape and wipe and sand away and add and change things. I have to turn things around to see it in a different way. So yeah, it's really a journey. And I told you this the other day. I said to Maria the other day, I started this painting and I felt pretty good about the opening statement, if you remember.
Yeah.
And then she came back the next day, and by the end of the day it had completely changed. And the same thing happened the following day. Certain passages had completely changed. And I said to you, I don't think I'm capable at this stage of my development life career to just put something down and step back and say, great, there it is, done. I don't know if it's my Midwestern upbringing, hard work ethic, working on the grandparents' farms, or what it is, but I don't feel a sense of satisfaction if I don't really have this journey be arduous and adventurous. I like that challenge. I could easily make some quick, beautiful moves at the beginning, go, there it is, you know, presto changeo, it's done. But I don't get much satisfaction from that. I'd much rather have to layer and change and make decisions, and yes, get lost, because in an adventure, you're getting lost.
Well, these things that you're talking about do raise a question in my head. One thing that you like to tell your students that I've heard in workshops that you conduct here is that it's not about the final product, it's about the process.
Right.
So that it is about that journey that allows for discoveries along the way. And then on the other hand, I'm thinking about my yoga practice as now starting to teach more and more, and how the yoga practice is not about achieving a certain pose and making it perfect. It's really what you'll learn on your way there.
Yes.
And it's not just what you learn about the pose itself, but it's also what you're learning about yourself in that process. So I'm wondering now if that art of discovery, which is obvious in the creating of a painting or any other form of art, is that maybe also a way of discovering about who you are. How do you make your journey through that creative process? How do you feel along the way? Because knowing Mark, he's actually enjoying getting lost. When we travel, he loves to get lost and just go wander, and knowing that, okay, eventually I will find my way back. On the other hand, me as a person, I really do not enjoy getting lost. I like to know where my next step is gonna be and take me closer to. So I wonder if the art of creation of, a painting in this case can actually reveal to the painter more about
themselves.
Who she is.
Yeah, I actually met a person when I was traveling some years ago at a cafe. We were chatting, and she said, "Oh, I wish I knew how to get lost. I just would love to be able to do that, but I'm always so fearful."
Me too.
And I get lost in the painting at times because I know I'm going to find my way. That's the thing. And when I get lost traveling, I know how to get back home. And that's the other thing too. So I'm not so fearful. And you do learn about yourself in this activity. You learn what it is to be afraid. You learn what it is to fail. You learn what it is to have moments of great clarity. Fantastic. But you also have moments of not being clear. And then just, shaking your head going, how am I going to get out of this mess I've just made? Nick Wilton talked about making messes. I like that when he said the other day, sometimes you have to make a mess.
The ugly phase, yeah.
And get it through the ugly phase of certain passages. And I really related to that when I heard that. So yeah, you and I were talking earlier about a quote. I mentioned Agnes Martin. She says that we have a tendency to think that when everything's going great, we're moving forward into the work, and the moment something doesn't go well, we have a tendency to think that we're moving backwards. But she says that's not true. It's all a forward motion, including the problems, the missteps, the miscalculations, even the failures. All of that is a forward motion and takes you to, hopefully, a place where you can have a sense of resolution. Finally, that's what's so gratifying about painting, especially if you are struggling. Is that final sense after many hours and days and however long, you reach a point of resolution. You reach a point where it comes to rest and you can step back and go, God, it works. Thank God it finally works. I think that's the moment where all painters enjoy and revel. It's like, it's finally working now. There's a sense. And you wouldn't have that relief. You wouldn't have that sense of elation if you didn't have to work hard to get there. Right. Every move was perfect and wonderful. I don't know, it'd be kind of boring. That's how I feel.
So do you feel like that act of discovery or discovering,
not knowing,
has to take you through those unknown places in order to discover?
Yes.
Or is it possible to discover something even if you're, threading carefully and kind of...
Look, there are probably some artists who are so measured from beginning to end. They know exactly what they want to do. It all gets mapped out. They know just what they're going to do. And I'm not saying that is not valid. I'm sure that they have their own joy in doing that. Every step along the way, measured. clear, precise, concise. I just never worked that way, and I wouldn't want to. I like not knowing. And yes, I like having to weave through uncharted territory. Uncharted territory. I don't know where this thing's going to take me any more than this writer didn't know where her characters were going to take her. You know, to me, that's fantastic. I don't want to know until I'm starting to know. If that makes any sense. Not knowing is an okay thing.
So I'm gonna throw up maybe a difficult question.
Yeah.
You know, out of the blue.
Here we go.
I'll give you a challenge.
All right.
This year you will be celebrating 50 years in September of making art.
Yes.
Not just making art, but seriously devoting your life to making art and taking that decision to become an artist. And
that's when I
do
entered
it.
college at 17, yeah.
So in these 50 years of the journey as an artist, what have you discovered?
That I still love doing this. You know, that it's still, you know, I still love doing it. And I still love discovering new ways of working. And I think my teaching all these years lends into that, because I have to continue, I want to continue to be the perennial student. I do. You know, painting is a good example. I was talking recently with students about an earth triad. What is an earth triad? It's yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and Payne's gray. That's it. Those three colors plus white. And I'm talking about it, but I've never really managed to or brought myself to work mostly with a very limited earth triad. And that's what I did for most of this painting, not all of it. And I thought to myself, you've been talking about the earth triad forever. But let's practice what you preach. And let's discover where that earth triad, that limited palette, where it will take you. And it took me to some really very remarkable places.
So you almost like gave yourself a challenge in a way.
I gave myself a challenge to practice what I preach.
And that is something that might lead to discoveries, and maybe a failure or a dead end, and maybe we'll have to walk back. But giving yourself challenges could lead to discoveries. And I find that interesting, that sometimes offering a new tool or a new technique or a new way of seeing things can become a discovery for someone who just hasn't tried it before. And it can seem like, oh, that's not the way I work, or it can seem even scary or unnecessary to go there, but then sometimes it might lead to a discovery.
Yeah, taking a sharp left turn.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
And I think that in your workshop, I witnessed that a little bit, because there are artists who come and they say, well, I normally don't work in this fashion.
Right.
And then if they stick with it for a little bit, then they discover things that either can be then applied to how they work, or even a slightly different direction, something that they haven't done before, and now they want to dive deeper into.
Yeah, being open to new things.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that it's sometimes the piece itself or the material itself that brings you there, and sometimes you have to make a conscious decision to take a left turn.
But the interesting part of that is not being in control the whole time. Being open to this work this painting that I'm working on, talking back to me, saying, no, I don't want that right now. Take me over here. It really feels that way at times, you know, that you have to meet it at its own place. So, yeah.
It's an interesting food for thought.
Yeah. And I don't think I answered your earlier question that well about what I've learned in 50 years, but...
Do you want to redo?
No, I guess I will stand by my answer, which is I still love doing this, and I always will. I can't imagine not doing this. I'm going to be like Matisse, you know, who at the end of his life, he's up there with a long pole, drawing angels on the ceiling from his ill dead.
But I actually think that you answered it earlier when you said that you discovered about yourself that you're not able to do this
in an easy way. Right. Well, the easy path takes you nowhere. It's the one that has many obstacles that takes you somewhere.
Would you agree with that?
The easy path
I'm
takes
curious.
you. I say the path with obstacles is the one that really gets us somewhere.
Are obstacles necessary
We can leave it at that.
to learn? Yeah.
Well, they're useful. They're useful. I think obstacles are useful.
Let's hear from you guys. I would be curious to maybe read in your comments, what do you think about this subject, and what have you discovered? Is it...
And I'm not talking pain and suffering. just doing the hard work of making decisions and problem solving. It's all problem solving, right? I mean, all of painting is problem solving. From the beginning to the end, from large moves to small moves.
So many topics.
Right? The large moves are problems that have to be solved, and the small, tiny moves.
And then, coming back, while solving these problems, what are we discovering? What are we discovering about the painting or any art creation that you're struggling with? Or what are you discovering about yourselves as an artist, as a person, right? Through that struggle, and are struggles important or necessary or unnecessary? So I would love to hear back from you guys, and send us any other ideas that you might have for future videos. We will try to cover some of those in our future conversations. Also, follow Mark's social media if you want to continue seeing the progress of this painting and other paintings to come along and witness some of that discovering journey. And I would also invite you to subscribe to his newsletter if you haven't done so yet. So go to his website, mark@markeanes.com. Sorry, that's the email, markeanes.com, and sign up for the newsletter so you can get it once a month or so. Anything you want to say to close it up?
No, I think it's been a good talk.
All right, well then, see you next time with some new subject.
Ciao.